Hello and welcome to another short video from me, the History Tutor, and in this video I'm going to be talking you through AQA, Britain Health and People Skills, and we're going to be looking at the significance question, which is question 2 on the exam paper, and we're going to look at public health and in particular Edwin Chadwick's significance. So in this video, we're going to be looking at the significance question for the AQA exam, and in particular public health in the 1800s and beyond, and the impact and significance of Edwin Chadwick. So we will talk through and answer in detail and how to do the significance question, but we're also going to revise our knowledge. So firstly, have a little revision of your knowledge of public health in 1800s and beyond. Using my revision guide, you'll find lots of information in there, and then find the pages for the Edwin Chadwick significance task, and we're going to do a quick quiz in the form of a crossword puzzle. Okay, so here's our puzzle then. Have a look at the questions there and see if you can work out, using your revision guide notes and your knowledge, the answer to the puzzle. So we've got 7 questions there to answer. So pause me now and give it a go. Okay, you're all done. So here we are. So question number 1 is, people believe this theory caused disease in the 1800s, so miasma. So going back to this idea of bad smells causing disease. And if you looked at my medieval videos and Renaissance videos, this has been one of the dominant theories. So that bad air is a problem. The man who had led the report on sanitary conditions of the labouring population in 1842, of course, that's Chadwick, who we're going to focus on today. So Chadwick started to realise that the poor were not lazy, and that's why they were ill all the time. They lived in terrible conditions with terrible diets, no doctors, poor housing, with no sewers, no clean toilets, bad ventilation. So diseases spread around and they were ill all the time. 5 is disease that caused great fear from the 1830s onwards. So cholera, this was disease that appeared in the 1830s in Exeter and London, and then, as we know, Broad Street Pump in 1854, and epidemics appearing around 1800s until we got the better sewers and water conditions developing later on due to Bazalgette, of course, and others. 1858, this event led to sewers being built in London, so we should have the Great Stink. So this was the idea of miasma again, and River Thames in London got all hot in the hot summer, and all that waste in the river started to smell really badly. And so lots of people, maybe the gentry and wealthy, fled London fearing a big cholera outbreak. It never really happened, but it did inspire the government to build those sewers and give Bazalgette £3 million to improve the sewer systems of London. Number 7, a prince who died of a poor person's disease. So this is Albert, Victoria's husband, and he died of a waterborne disease, typhoid or typhus, because the lawns and pipes in Windsor Castle were so bad it was leaking waste around, and he caught the disease and died. Number 2, in 1854, he showed that cholera was spread by dirty water. That was John Snow, and he led his big investigation. He found out how everyone died in the Broad Street Pump outbreak and found that it all connected to the pump water, even if they lived far away. And all the people who didn't die in the region was because they drank something else, like the people in the beer factory drank the beer, for instance. So that meant that the water was causing the disease, and he removed the handle from the pump and the epidemic stopped, thus showing that the disease was waterborne, and he started to show that miasma is probably not a sensible theory. So the man who built the sewers for London, we've mentioned before already, and that's Bazalgette. Okay, so let's now go on to look at the question itself. So we've got question 2, and it says, explain why Edwin Chadwick was significant to development of public health in Britain. Now, you may have also seen some of my other significant videos, and therefore you may have done this activity already, but it might be a useful recap for you. However, if you've not done any of the significance questions yet, then have a think about what skills you think you need to show to answer a significance question. So it's got the word explain in there. It's 8 marks. It's got the word significant. What skills do you think you need to show to be successful with this question? So pause me now and have a think. Okay, so here's what I got. So firstly, you need to explain, for 8 marks, you need 2 paragraphs explaining your ideas. And you need to focus your paragraph on significance of Edwin Chadwick. So you need to be arguing why he is significant. So your opening point needs to have some significance criteria. And the significance criteria I talk about is the idea of lists. So we're going to use our list criteria. If you don't know what that is, I'm going to talk you through it in a moment. Obviously, we're going to give examples of Chadwick's actions and give a few details of what he did. Then we're going to, in our explain section, we're then going to explain why that is significant. And that might mean talking about long-term impact or impact on people wider than just himself and a few people around him. So that would make him significant. And if we can do some wider significance, we can get to 7 or 8 marks in our answer. So what is LIST then? So LIST is a phrase I use to help work out significance. It reminds us of some words. Now, L, as I've already mentioned, is for long term. So what are the other letters then? I, S, T, and S. What do you think they could mean? Have a think. See if you can work it out and make a note of them in your revision guide if you can. So here's what they are. So obviously L, as I said already, was long-term impact. I is important people or places. So is Edwin Chadwick involved with important people like the Queen or something, for instance? Size and scale. Does he impact lots and lots of people? Do we still use his ideas today? Did he have a major short-term impact? Did he cause something really, really massive to public health? So have a think of some ideas now. So pause me now and see if you can find some ideas. Look through the Chadwick notes, Public Health Act notes, maybe the wider impact longer term. Can you connect them to future actions of public health? See if you can jot down some ideas. Okay, so here's my ideas. I've gone for long-term impacts. His Public Health Act was eventually forced on local councils via the Public Health Act 1875. And so we've got a long-term impact here because the Public Health Act then becomes a law for the long term, doesn't it? So you've got to knock down bad houses. You've got to have planning for houses. You've got to have good ventilation for houses. So this means all the future building projects have to be better quality homes. Important people or places. Obviously, Prince Albert died of typhoid, and this led to support for Chadwick's reforms. Size and scale, the Voting Reform Act 1867 led to many town dwellers voting for the public health reforms and more support for Chadwick's reforms, suggesting that lots and lots of poor people wanted his Public Health Act brought in. Now, why is that? Because the 1848 Public Health Act was not compulsory, and so the rich taxpayers were not bringing it in. But obviously, with more poor people voting from 1867, they voted for people who wanted to improve their lives. And so by 1875, the Public Health Act was forced upon the people. Today, and in the long term, of course, Chadwick's actions have led to the welfare state. The idea that government is going to get more involved in our lives and improve our lives. And obviously, his public health acts have set the tone for the welfare reforms in 1905 and the welfare state from the Beveridge Report. It really has set the tone for the end of laissez-faire government and more direct government action. So in the short term, his report into sanitary conditions of the poor led to the Public Health Act, which is really significant moment, the government trying to get involved in improving people's lives. Okay, so how are we going to answer this question then? So here is a writing frame for what we're going to do. Remember, we're going to be focusing on significance. We're going to say one way that Chadwick was significant was because. We're going to give a reason using our list because he had a long-term impact in changing the way government helped people. So we're going to try and give a reason. We're going to give some evidence. For example, we did this and say what Chadwick did. Chadwick did his report into the sanitary conditions of the poor. So this was significant because, and then I'm going to explain the impact of that. If we need to do it furthermore, then we're going to try and do that. We'll try and do it once if we can in over our 2 paragraphs to try and give some complicated ideas if we want to get to the top band marks. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through a paragraph now. You can fill this in your revision guide. You can do something different to me, of course, but you want to follow the sort of skill set ideas that I'm outlining here. Okay, or if you just want to watch the paragraph and then have a go at your own afterwards, that's also great. Let's make a point to start off with, an opening point about its significance. So one way that Chadwick's significant was that he, and you might want to consider maybe long term or today, I think that's probably the easiest idea. So making your opening point now. Okay, so here's my idea. I've said one way that Chadwick was significant was that he inspired a long-term support of welfare and care for the poor. You could say obviously a bit more about government if you want and bring that factor into your opening sentence, and that'd be really great as well. So what are you going to say for your evidence of this? What did Chadwick do then that then led to this? So try and give an example of what Chadwick did. So for example, his 8th, and then you could go into something that he did. Away you go. Okay, so I've gone for this. So I said, for example, his 1842 report into the conditions of poor realised that it was bad conditions and bad housing causing illnesses that led to time off work, poverty, and it was not laziness of the workers as some people believed. So now we need to explain the significance of this. So this means you had a long-term significance because, and then explain. So we need to go into the longer-term events. And this might even step away from Chadwick's work into an era that's got nothing to do with him, if you so believe you want to do that. Go for your answer now. Okay, so I've said this means he had long-term significance because by 1875, a Public Health Act was forced on local councils to build better quality housing with sanitation and having building inspectors to ensure that workers lived in homes that had good ventilation, in which disease would not spread easily. So the impact long-term is the 1875 Public Health Act, and that would be a really good idea to do. You might have brought in other acts, you might have gone further in time forward, and that's fine. So let's have a think about furthermore. So as I've gone 1875, I can now go further on in time and link to the 1900s perhaps now with an even longer term idea. Okay, so pause me now and give your idea if you've got one. Okay, so here's mine. I've said furthermore, he is significant in long term because this inspired the welfare state in the 1900s, as Chadwick's demands led to an end of laissez-faire politics, which meant that by 1940 the government was confident to impose the Beveridge Report on the people and create a modern welfare state. I really feel we've got to get to that somewhere if you're going to do a Chadwick answer and you're talking about the end of laissez-faire in the 1800s. It's really important to try and get to that phase. So let's try a second paragraph, shall we? So we've got another way that Chadwick was significant was because we need to give an idea. We could talk about how many people he impacted. We could do like a size and scale idea here, perhaps how lots and lots of people were influenced by his reports and wanted change. Maybe that might be a useful idea to do, but I'll leave it to you to have a look over your plan and come up with your own idea. Then I'll show you an example in a moment. Okay, so here's my example. I've said another way that Chadwick was significant was because he impacted the lives of many people with his government reports. For example, he led a commission to the conditions of the poor, and in his 1842 report he found that poor people did not work due to laziness but instead due to poor living conditions causing illnesses. This was significant because many people were impacted by this report and the reforms it caused. For instance, Leeds adopted Public Health Acts in full. Subsequently, birth and death rates over the following years showed a big impact on people as life expectancy increased in this area. So there's many examples you could include of impact that people are happy and involved. You could go straight to the election of 1867, as I mentioned in the plan, to show that people really supported this as an idea as well. So furthermore, there was a big impact on people and their ideas of public health, as Chadwick had managed to convince rich people that the poor had problems due to disease and bad living conditions and not laziness. This led to change in the way people looked at the poor as they began to help with the welfare of these people rather than punishing them with laws like the Poor Law. Charles Dickens highlighted this in his book Oliver Twist. So I've gone to a totally sort of alternative idea there of it. If you've gone for extra reforms, 1867 voting, and then the compulsory nature of 1875 Public Health Act, that'll also be really great ideas also. Okay, well, if you find that useful, then do look out for more of my videos. Have a look at my YouTube channel and subscribe. And also do have a look at the links in my YouTube video and see if you can find your way to my Amazon page, where I've got lots and lots of revision guides to help you with lots and lots of questions and some really great notes to help you revise from. Well, I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye for now.